Well, it's 9:01. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Um, are there any members of the public here, Veronica, that wish to speak?
Yeah, Veronica might be having some audio difficulty. I don't think there's anyone that I can see, Christina,
Okay,
unless our honorary public member, John Sneed, would like to say anything to the group.
no, okay.
Thanks for joining us again, John. We just can't seem to get rid of you.
I'm like a bad penny.
All right, let's go ahead and can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 2024, unless any changes need to be made?
I'll move that.
All right, second,
Seconded.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Let's move on to new business. Chance?
Madam Chair, can everyone see the PowerPoint? Is it on the screen?
I can see the agenda.
All right. Did it just change slides?
It
Yes.
did.
All right, cool. I'm having a hard time seeing what you guys are seeing on Zoom. So I'm shooting from the hip here, but I can see it. So, all right. First item up is just a quick recap, update information to the committee. City had an unsolicited offer to purchase two of our parking decks, Market Street and Second Street, as well as 115 North 3rd Street and the parcel next door. I forget the actual address there, but it's the old Harrelson building property. Unsolicited offer that went for consideration to council at its July meeting. Leading into that meeting, the city had surplus and is actively seeking to sell the old Harrelson building at 115 North 3rd Street. The other two properties were parking assets, Second Street parking decks. We're going to offer unsolicited offer, which is very important, of $16 million to purchase all the bundle of those properties. To date, the city had invested roughly $35.2 million in capitalized purchase property, debt service, capitalized improvements, $35.2 million to date of an investment into those properties. Staff did not recommend that this pass. Really the two main points from staffing's perspective in July were, number one, the offer was substantially lower than what the city had invested in, specifically Market Street alone. The city has invested $16 million into that Market Street asset since 2003. As well, the council hadn't alluded to wanting to surplus or sell, that big of a group of parking assets. I think that would be roughly 60+% of our parking inventory in the core of the CBD. So staff recommended that not pass. Council did agree. A little bit of discussion. I don't know if anyone tuned in on that Tuesday agenda night. Not a lot of discussion, but a little. But council did agree. What did come of the motion was, and this council did recommend and approve the surplus of the Second Street parking deck, which will allow for a future sale. Now, any future sale, whether it be solicited, unsolicited, packaged with, the Harrelson building, whatnot, that will still need to come back to city council for any approval. at a future agenda meeting. Although it wasn't really part of the item that night, from the staffing's perspective, at this juncture, at this time, we are okay with the council approval of the surplus of the Second Street parking deck. Through the years, that deck has been very valuable, very useful, serviced a lot of parking needs since 1991, 92, I think was the original construction there. Up until I think slightly before pre-COVID, we were at a point where we're at nearly 100% occupancy a few days a week during that peak time of 11 to 1 p.m. Monday through Friday. COVID hit, the office market changed drastically into that area, and the occupancy dropped. And with the city's transition from 305 Chestnut up to the Skyline building on the north end, those numbers have dropped even more. I think we're running roughly 50% occupied at peak Monday through Friday in that 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Time frame. In the evening, I think we're somewhere between the 25 to 30% on average in the evening. And then the weekend numbers, depending on the season, kind of ebbs and flows, but somewhere around the 30% mark at peak as well, I would say on average. So significantly low use, or not low use, but lower use than previous years. As well as a aging asset there that the city has invested quite a bit of capital repairs into in the last couple of years, 2.3 million worth of capital repairs. We've got a potentially planned 750,000 of additional capital repairs this year. So it's an aging asset that at this point is really, costing the city quite a bit of investment, quite a bit of money to kind of keep at its service level. So staff is okay with that surplus. Also think it could benefit a combo cell with the 115 North 3rd Street Harrelson building as well. So, Madam Chair, that's really all I got on the update. I don't know if there's any questions or comments from the group on this item. I think there'll be more to come as this progresses through the months or through the years.
Has city staff yet identified the need of parking with Project Grace and new assets that are going to be coming on?
Not yet. We're working on it. We're taking a deep dive on the current occupancy numbers with our system at 2nd Street right now. We are working with an appraiser to identify what the true value is, number one, of a combo cell. If the city were to sell both assets, what's the true value there from an appraisal standpoint? And part of what's needed there is really a deep dive on the occupancy at both locations. So we're working with Pivot on kind of the software we have with our current parking system isn't the best, and you've got to piecemeal a few reports together, unfortunately, to get a truer look at what those numbers are in terms of transient and monthly at the same time. So we're working with Corinne and team on that. Once I get those firm numbers, per the mayor's directive that night, per city manager's that directive post agenda, we're going to put together kind of a 1,000-foot high level parking demand model for that deck at its current level. We're going to add in what we know about Project Grace, and really what I have publicly from Project Grace is what's being built on the north parcel with the museum and the new library. And only thing else I can do is plug in on the Project Grace side what we know publicly about the future private side of that development, and then factor in any potential overflow coming from that project. and then factor in a few uses with a potential 3 or 5 Chestnut sale, whether it be hotel, residential, grocery store, mixed use. A lot of the uses, potential uses with a sell 305 Chestnut, may or may not impact the Second Street parking deck. Obviously, if a grocery store is built across the street, those grocery store customers are going to have to be serviced on site over there in some kind of parking capacity. And I don't foresee much activity happening due to that at the Second Street deck. Whereas if it's a large hotel, mixed use, I think the usage and demand across the street, Second Street parking deck could increase and service that. So we're going to put together a few kind of, in theory, high level potential uses there and kind of gauge some impact.
Are you taking into consideration the redevelopment of the Market Street property that formerly housed the Rhino? Or not the Rhino, the Blue Eyed Muse? Currently demolished site.
What's the address on that?
It's right next to Pony Cyrus.
Yeah, not for
Okay.
Second Street. Yeah, not for the Second Street. I doubt, I don't foresee us going that far on a Second Street demand model. I think if anything happens
So,
there, we could service that market pretty easily.
so what's the value of the city selling off to a private party? Which will, I'm thinking in terms of public benefit and public use, which will likely increase the parking rates versus keeping the parking deck within the city's portfolio at a potentially reduced rate and continue to service the parking deck as more developments come online. Have you done any revenue projections on the benefit of keeping the deck within the city's inventory as a public asset?
Well, we're working on that demand model currently with known developmental projects right next door at Grace, and then potential, in theory, options across the street at 305 Chestnut. Overall value of a sale of Second Street and the Harrelson building is 13.5 million of appraised value. I think ultimately that 13.5 million would go back into the general fund, and beyond that, that would be, manager and council's decision on how to use the funds that potentially come from a sale from both of those assets. I mean, I think some options there would be to pay down its current debt service at Skyline. Another option could be, putting that money into its capital expenditure program for other projects, roads, Riverwalk, other infrastructure needs. But yeah, I think on the appraised side, I think it's roughly your $13 to $14 million value from a potential sell
For
of
both properties?
for both properties, yeah, excluding Market Street.
And they wanted all three assets for 16?
Correct, yes.
The values that are dependent upon the use planned by the purchaser. So that's some kind of discounted cash flow analysis based on what, okay. So
Yeah.
what was the value? What was the projected use?
We don't know projected use from the potential sell.
But they came up with a value, so they must have had some idea of.
Yeah, they never brought a potential use to the table. They brought a unsolicited offer of 16 million for all the assets, but they did not produce a use. They didn't have to produce a use with the way, general statute works for stuff like this.
Not
So-
for the offer, but when you say the projected value, the offer just is.
For us.
They can do anything they want with that, but in terms of having a value ascribed to those properties of $13 odd million, how
Yeah,
did
I'm just basing that number on, we have an appraisal. I'm basing my value, maybe I didn't answer the question correctly from Christina or you. I'm just appraising, I'm noting the 13 to 14 million value on the appraisals that we have in hand for both assets, the parking deck and the Harrelson building there. In terms of tax value, I don't know what that would be. That would be a county assessment. I'm not sure what the tax. I think the tax value of the Harrelson right now is maybe 6 million. Tax value of the parking deck's probably somewhere in the 2 to 3 million, something like that. But it's publicly owned right now, change of hands into the private sector. I don't know how that would affect the county's appraisal to tax value.
Yeah, thanks, Chance. And that's fine. And we don't,
Yeah.
just where I was going with this was the value based on their projected use could give us an idea of the parking
Sure.
demand. And that's
Yeah,
kind of where I was going.
Absolutely, yeah. And back to my Christina on the Project Grace too, everything they've released publicly, per my knowledge, you know, that parking deck, their intent was not to push anyone out that is currently contracted at the deck, per my understanding. Per my understanding, the county has publicly said they would be, you know, accommodating that project both in the public and private side. So everything I've heard publicly from the county and on that is they would be accommodating the demand for that project. Beyond that, it might be tricky to gauge what any potential overflow of that could be without truly knowing, similar to what Michael said, truly knowing what the final build model and use is going to be on the private side, because 300 hotel rooms is a whole lot different than 300 residents, you know, or a mix of both plus some retail on the bottom. It's a whole lot different than one single use, you know, so it might be tricky. We can throw a couple use cases at that one too, to see a potential overflow of what could come to the Second Street deck. But that one could be tricky on our end.
Yeah, I'd hate to see a premature sale of a valuable public asset like that prior to realizing the full potential of Project Grace. Especially given that the current deck is already being used, the current county deck is already being used for 2 hotels, the judicial folks who come in for jury duty and things like that. You have monthly parking, you have library staff, you're going to have increased library staff, increased employment base for the Cape Fear Museum coming to that deck. I personally use that as well for me and my staff. I know Grover Gaming uses it. You have several other entities that use the Second Street deck for their monthly parking, office users and that sort of thing. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of work being done on, you know, what the value is for the sale, but it is, you know, again, to my previous question, is there any value or any value assessment being done on keeping the deck and utilizing it to its full potential should there be redevelopment happening, as far as adding a hotel user on 3rd Street or adding that grocer, or adding that office user or apartment complex. And I guess that's my big question mark is where's the value engineering being done on full utilization of that deck versus selling off the public asset along with at a $13 million valuation or assessment.
And to round that out a little bit, you can't really know how valuable the property is to them until you know how much money they're going to make, which gets back to use. Just to round that out a little bit.
Noted, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, you sell it and it's run by a private parking entity who raises rates. I mean, there's public parking here downtown in private lots and decks all over the place. You compare their value, their going rate versus the going rate here for city parking. They don't allow residents to park free on July 4th, or, you know, it's consistent fees and higher fees than what the city charges. So I think the public benefit is also there.
And there's an intangible too, knowing that you've got, maybe we do have a little bit, we have some surplus, certainly more surplus based on your stats than we did before, but you know, there's an intangible value to Wilmington being a friendly place to visit. Parking, I can always get a parking spot or usually get a parking spot. I would argue maybe a little bit, and there's, everybody here probably has a lot more experience than I do on some of these issues, but there's a Wilmington friendly sort of aspect to that, which again is intangible. And at the end of the day, you know, we're not necessarily running a business, although we have to be smart and not stupid with public money, but the impression people have of the ease of coming to Wilmington is certainly has some, as I say, intangible value.
Oh, got it. We'll be talking about this one in the future. Madam Chair, I'll let you make the call, but I think maybe once we get our New Hanover County rep fully appointed by council, maybe Jacob could bring an update on Project Grace and what the potential foresight and parking demands are from the county's perspective on that project for the group as well. So
Yeah, that would be great. And I know this is ongoing research on the city's end, and the county will play into it at some point. So yes, we can continue the conversation and hopefully have that county appointee soon. In addition, I've been trying to speak with the developer to figure out, you know, what the parking needs might be. Haven't received a response just yet. It's definitely something to keep considering.
yeah, I should have, regardless of what happens with this, I should have my model easily by September, the latest October meeting, that we could go over on what my projections look like with some, in theory, uses across the street and what I think may or may not be some overflow use coming from Project Grace and or other kind of unknown parcels nearby that could be some future development in the area too.
Okay. Well, if you need any future land use or that's been approved or need to get in touch with any developers, I'm more than happy to make that connection.
Thank you.
All right. Anything further? All right, I digress, Chance.
All right, quick update here for the committee. Currently 7 of 9 seats filled. Scott Monroe did resign from the committee back in June. I think his new business endeavor is going well, and he just didn't have the time to dedicate and allocate to DPAC. I think he'd been a member for 5+ years, which is a pretty long run. Scott resigned in June, bringing us down to 7. Jacob is still waiting in limbo. I think the council appointments committee met earlier this month, and Jacob, like I said at the beginning of the meeting, I think you might be on the agenda for an official appointment, or hope you're on the agenda for an official appointment next week. So hopefully come September meeting here, you'll be number 8 of seats filled, and then that will leave 1 open. And if I recall, Scott was an at-large. So if anyone knows anyone that is highly interested in discussing parking every 3rd Thursday of the month, send them my way, or send them to the city clerk's way. And then on that note, Scott was our vice chair. I didn't put it on this meeting to reelect. I just wanted to give everyone a heads up so you could think about it. and hopefully have some volunteers. We will need to re-elect a vice chair at either our September or October meeting. So current members, think about it. Anyone looking to volunteer, I think we're always looking to take that role. I think the vice chair essentially assumes the role of chair when Madam Chair is not present. So that's it on the member updates, Christina.
All right. Thank you, Chance. All right, old business or, yeah, old business.
Yeah, no old business, it's just the update items.
Okay.
Unless any members have any old business they don't want to bring up or new business. I forget if I even put that on the agenda, so. Q4 financials, finished FY24. Very positive. We are up $652,000 year over year from FY23. It's about 11.56% increase. A good chunk of that increase came from on-street revenue. We increased the hourly fee from $2 to $2.50 August 1st, 2023. So there was 11 months of increased hourly fees on the on-street side. So that contributed to a majority of that increase. We also added the Skyline parking deck on the north end, started collecting revenue there on the event side in August of last year. So I think that accounted for about $160,000 worth of additional revenue. So between those two, that was the majority of that increase. But overall, just one increase on the rate side. All other rates remain static for the year. At the other facilities, the increase across the board is very positive here. On street, as I noted, up mainly because of that 50 cent per hour increase. We're up 449,000 year over year. That's 26% increase. Citation revenue, slight increase there, about 30,000 year over year. I guess there's positive and negative with the citation revenue increase. The positive is obviously it's a revenue source coming in. Negative is it's compliance. The higher our revenue is on the citation side, it's in most cases, or not all cases, but it's compliance. It's folks out there either not paying their meter or running overtime. So I always like to look at that and kind of think about what we can do better for marketing materials, informational purposes, to drive that compliance. I think we were down at the beginning of the year, and this number is kind of steadily ticked up. I think Q3 and Q4, this number kind of steadily rose up. Was there a question?
Was that me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you, Veronica.
Yes.
Sorry, that was me.
Here's a positive. It's the first increase we've seen in a bit. Financials on-street hours purchased. The rose slight, about 10,000 hours or 1.2% increase. That previous increase in FY22 was really a much higher number. FY22 was a fantastic year, probably one of the better years we've had on record in terms of on-street usage, and that was following COVID. I think pre-FY20 we had seen steady. Pre-COVID we had seen steady decreases on the on-street hour purchased. So a slight increase there. And that's even with a rate increase of 50 cents per hour. We're up 1.2% of on-street usage. And then off-street, we are up slight on the deck usage, about 153,000 or 5.9%. And then the parking lot, Second Street lot, and Hannah Block lot, just a slight increase, 18,000 or 2.49%. Mainly driving that off-street increase on the deck side is the Skyline activation there on the north end. There were slight increases across the board, everywhere at 2nd Street deck, slight increase, River Place, slight increase. And then kind of an unusual decrease at Market Street last year. We were down year over year at Market Street, I think approximately $109,000 at Market Street. So we saw increases across the board, with the exception of Market Street. And I tasked Jeff and Austin with Pivot Parking, Jeff with the city, to kind of do a deep dive there. And Jeff, I don't know if you want to lead it off with kind of an explanation of why we think out of everywhere Market Street might be down.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. So first of all, I feel like I haven't talked with the group in a long time. So I'm happy to speak with you. I'm happy to be talking parking, and I don't want to nerd you out and make your eyes glaze over, but I want to offer up some theories as to why Market Street might be down. So just to kind of piggyback on Mr. Michael's quote about Wilmington friendly, I think that's a real thing that's happening in downtown. I think there's a culture shift that's real and tangible. So I got 3 theories for you, and I'm going to pass the mic to Austin after I list out my 3, but just hear me out. Theory number 1. We're spreading out. I think with the 929 deck being in play, I think that parkers are spreading out to the northern part of downtown. I don't want to toot any horns here, but I feel like that deck has a quality of life moment with it being gateless that makes life easier. So I think we're spreading out the 929. The second thing I think is contributing to the Market Street decrease. I think that we're talking about the culture, right? Downtown Wilmington, we're talking about the culture. I think that people have become aware a little bit about the meters being free after 6:30. I think they are honing in on that. We could talk about that further if you want to. And then my final theory is what we're kind of already talking about right now is I feel like there's an increase. We can go back to the slides and kind of talk about it, but there's an increase in on-street revenue, meaning that I have to do a deeper dive, but I feel like between text to park and pay by phone, I feel like people are kind of, again, I keep using the term quality of life. I feel like people are okay parking at the meters. They know they can text the park 25023, put in the code, boom, pay by phone. They probably already have the app downloaded, boom. I'm good to go. I just wanted to lay out my 3 theories. I can discuss a little bit deeper detail about the increased revenue part, but the first 2 are anecdotal. Maybe we can talk about it more in September. But I think people are aware of the meters being free, and I think that we're spreading out. Austin, do you want to chime in with anything that I've brought up?
Jeff, I do support your 3 theories. They're awesome. I think you hit the nail on the head with the convenience factor. We did add some technology so that people don't have to download an app. So the ease is there. They are spreading out. So I do believe you there. Two unforeseen factors that I think about are, potential storm influx and filming variables that also took place. So adding those two small notes, I do believe you're correct on all of that, and I wanted to include my two.
I'm opening up the floor for any questions, or we can move on. Either way.
I have a quick question. Is there an assessment on, is it easy to find hour to hour if there's particular hours of the day or evening that are down in that deck?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can provide you with that after the meeting ends and give you a deep dive on exactly the dip in the time of day when Market Street deck is off. I can send that to you here shortly after the meeting.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And just for the good of the group too, I think Austin hit one of the bigger ones, film. So film is booming right now again, which is amazing. I think this whole town, especially downtown, benefits when there's 4 or 5 or 6 productions in town. Leading into 2023, we historically had serviced the film extras parking at 2nd Street deck and Market Street deck. I think toward the end of 2023, for various reasons, a few of those productions started setting up their base camp, so to speak, on the north end at 2 private lots. And at the same time, we slowly started allowing use to those productions on a kind of a trial basis of our 1020 North Front Street lot, part of the Gateway project up there. It's a unoccupied, undeveloped parcel on the far north end. And I would say since fall of 23, late fall 23, if not early 24, all of those productions for the most part are parking most of their extras here on the north end. So that I would say that equates to probably $15,000 to $20,000 worth of revenue that shifted from the Market Street and 2nd Street deck to the north end. Now we are getting revenue for film's use up there on the city's parcels. It's just going back into the general fund because those aren't part of the parking enterprise fund. So probably a little bit less revenue, but I think it's helping film out as a whole. But we're just seeing that dip on the parking enterprise side. Another one that these guys didn't touch on, which is a tangible drop, 2 tangible drops. One is we're down about 90 monthly parkers year over year at the Market Street deck. One chunk of that 90 was Untapped. Untapped was down on South Front Street. I think they were between the 2nd Street lot and the Market Street deck. I think they had about 40 or 50 parkers, and approximately about 30 of those were at Market Street. And then we're down about 40 year over year of our highly discounted rooftop parkers. I think at one point in 23 we had hit the 150 plus mark for that $25 rooftop rate. I think that's down to right around 100 right now, roughly. So that equates for a tangible drop. And when you do the math, down 90 monthly parkers at 25 up to 75 per month, that's a tangible drop in revenue there. And then kind of where we probably need to do the deep dive is we're down 13,000 processed transient tickets year over year. So that's 13,000 parkers that aren't parking at Market this year versus last. And that could be a mix of what Jeff and Austin already alluded to, spread out to the north end. I think a lot of that spread's happening on the event side. We're parking 200 to 300 event parkers at Skyline now. those 200 to 300 parkers were parking elsewhere throughout downtown the year before. So I think that's a big chunk of it. And then I think Pivot, Corinne and Tina did a pretty deep dive when we first started seeing this in the first quarter of our financials. Fall of 2022, August and September of 2022, which is the start of FY23, those were just huge months. I don't know what was happening in August and September of 2022, but they were just huge months. The tickets we were processing at market, excluding film, excluding monthly parkers, just the core transit, they may have been the 2 best months we'd had in the history of Market Street. So, I mean, something was going on those 2 months that we didn't see this year. Storm may have been part of it. But something great was happening those 2 months that we just haven't been able to get back to. So I think it's various reasonings behind it. And hopefully we'll recapture that loss this year because our loss usually is potentially downtown's loss. A single car or 10,000 tickets equates to, business and revenue to our vibrant community and, small business owners downtown. So hopefully we'll get back.
Chance, have you looked at those years in comparison to what Live Nation was bringing in through the concert season? Because we're down concerts this year.
Yeah, Christina, we I don't know that we took a deep dive on the latter part of the year. I know we looked at it heavy on the Q1, on the July, August, and September comparison, and it was down a couple concerts. And when we went year over year, I don't know that we looked at the first part of this season compared to the first part of last season quite yet, which would have been April, May, and June. So yeah, that could potentially be another reason.
And that was about the same time that the 929 deck came online, correct?
Yep.
So you're pulling you have more concerts, but you're also pulling many of those folks from
Sure.
the core of the district to the north end is for parking. Just something to consider.
Yeah, there's I think a whole host of variables play into it. So
Hey, one observation I've made, and I don't know how different it is from last year because I wasn't over the parking last year, but when the events are going on, I see a lot of people parking farther into town and walking over to the concerts. That way, when the concert's over, they walk back to their car and they're close to the bars and restaurants downtown. And they're only having to pay for an hour, maybe 2 of parking when they arrive early, and then it's free in the evening. So they can park much cheaper than parking at Skyline or other event parking. Instead of paying $10 to $20, they pay for an hour of parking and they get the whole night.
So yes, but to your point, one of the things that I brought up was I just feel like just kind of, I need to give you some more evidence, but I feel like the parker downtown has gotten more savvy. And they kind of know the best way to navigate getting bottlenecked in a deck when they have to leave and trying to mitigate how much they spend on the front end. But yeah, I agree with your point, sir.
Sean, that's something that your predecessor, Ms. Silva, really drove the last few years because the free on street up and down 4th Street, the cheaper on street on the latter part of the day leading into 6:30 versus the $10, $15, and $20 rates at CFCC, city, and other assets for event parking. It's a potential, and you can see it both ways. Number one, it's an easy, friendly experience for some, as Michael alluded to overall, but it's a potential revenue loss for CFCC and the city there as well. So. But we're first month, we'll continue to monitor market. I hope that we don't see a trend here. Hopefully it bounces back. And we at least get back to a kind of a break even when we're looking at 25 versus 24 moving forward. All right, Madam Chair, the only other item I had on the city side before we hand it off to Pivot Parking is just a quick update. The capital project at the Market Street deck has started. They mobilized at the very end of June. And they are moving pretty quick, especially considering the weather that we've had. They've completely removed all the waterproofing membrane off level 7 into level 6. They've completed all the sealing up there. I think they are waiting on some dry days to reapply that waterproofing membrane. Normally it's about a 36 to 48 hour period where things have to remain for the most part dry for those layers to settle and stick there. But they are moving down into the other items in the parking deck, stairwell repair. They're about to pull out an expansion joint on level 2, I think starting this week, if not next week. But are probably ahead of schedule right now. So the pictures you see there from Market Street, and then just a quick update. I don't have any photos. Same at the Convention Center capital project. We started a little bit before the one in Market, early June. They're a little bit behind there because of some challenges we found as we've pulled up some waterproofing membrane there and some water coming from other areas. But we're moving along there as well. And hopefully have both projects completed, I'd say in the next 60 to 90 days, hopefully. With that, I will pass it on to Pivot Parking and our contractor updates. And I believe Austin is taking the role here.
Okay, awesome.
Yep. How's everybody doing? Thank you. We'll start off with just a little bit of a Market Street entrance update. We'll then move into our 4th of July recap. And I'll finish off with some citation analysis and a short platform update. So starting with our 2 planter pots at the entrance of Market, we were looking to revitalize them a little bit. I think we had a huge success. We had a little bit of a friendly competition between the 2 planter pots. So I do encourage you guys, if you haven't already walked by, to check our work out. We're very proud, and we think it's a continued success as all those plants grow, and they have made it through the summer. So pretty proud of that. All right, next we'll move into a quick 4th of July update. You can see our totals per location for transactions and revenue here. A few highlights. Market Street was our highest with $2,960 generated. I do want to highlight our number 2 here, which is our 929 garage. We topped at $2,440 and parked 244 cars there. So to everybody's point, it's been a huge success with that 929 garage. We are seeing a lot of event revenue coming in, and it has been a huge success. So all of that totaling just over $10,000 with 903 cars parked. And do keep in mind that's within about a 5-hour window. So we're feeling good about those numbers.
Hey, Austin, I think I forgot with everything going on. Did we hit 4th of July? It was on a Thursday this year. Did we hit capacity anywhere?
Yes, we hit capacity at Market, Second, and Convention.
Okay.
Moving to a little bit of platform analysis for June. On the top left of this slide, you can see our citations. Total citations for the month are 2,949. Of those, 2,305 were paid. So that gives us a 78% collection rate for that month, which we also feel good about that number. We immobilized 27 vehicles this month or for June. And moving on to our digital payment methods, you can see on the top right, our pay by phone transactions. Between this month, we had a total of 16,766 through pay by phone. And with Text to Park, we had 15,416 transactions. So those are moving well. To all y'all's point, we have incorporated some good technology to hopefully ease the stress of parking and make it much more friendly here downtown. Same stuff for July. The total citations were 2,882. 1,967 of which were paid. That gives us a 68% collection rate, which is a little bit lower than June there. We also immobilized 24 vehicles for the month of July. Again, looking at our digital payment methods, our pay by phone transaction total was 17,263 for July. And then our Text to Park total was 17,424. So would like to highlight that our Text to Park did surpass pay by phone for the month of July. So again, just heightening the fact that this newer technology is really taking hold. We're seeing an increase in usage across the board for it. So we continue to monitor that and see great results. That is all I had for pivot updates. If anybody does have any questions, please feel free.
I have a question which someone asked me the other day about what Pivot does in terms of who should they call, actually was the question. Police or Pivot when, or maybe it's routed to the same thing, when a driveway is blocked, when someone's driveway is blocked. Is that a police matter and how do they respond to that?
So you can call Pivot Parking for that one. We can assess the situation and if need be, reach out to WPD, but you can direct all those calls to us.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Michael, that's a tough one through the years. It comes up occasionally, Pivot and PD. So the tricky thing is including myself, Pivot and myself, I can't dispatch a tow on street. All tows have to come through WPD. They have to authorize it. And that's just city code. So unfortunately, in most cases, there's no quick solution there. You call Pivot or PD. It might be a little bit quicker of a solution to call PD directly. I think either one.
Thanks. Thanks to you both.
We're very, depending on where you look at this statement, we're a very tow-friendly city, I think, in terms of we don't tow a lot of cars. I don't know if I said the right thing there, but including PD, like last case scenario is towing a car. And I think there's been some interesting history that predates me and most folks on this call. But we're very, very most likely not going to tow you city on the public city side.
Gotcha.
In most cases, I think, and if a homeowner's got a driveway called, police comes out, in most cases, I think what PD normally tries to do is run those tags and see if they have some ownership information on that vehicle that's nearby or in their system to where they can contact and tell them to come to the car in.
That's a good thing.
Good question.
I have a couple questions just for my notes. Of that $10,000 in revenue, you said, so the first was Market Street, second was the 929 deck, which is a little 2,000, and then the third was the Second Street garage. Yeah. Okay. And then as far as the capacity in July, was it Second Street lot or Second Street garage that was full capacity on July 4th?
Second Street garage.
So question for you, Austin. That's a great question, Madam Chair. In looking at Market and Second Street, we had 296 transactions, 241 transactions. Really at Market Street, what's the delta between the 296 transactions and the 576 parking space capacity at that deck? You said we reached capacity, right, at Market Street? So
Absolutely.
what were the other cars in the deck? Were they there just before the pre-sale and or monthly parkers?
Yeah, that's correct. We had all of our monthly parkers, and then we had a pretty solid flood of people getting in and getting downtown before the rush for the fireworks. So, you know, as you can tell from these numbers, we had a solid amount of parkers in this garage before we did start the event rate itself.
Cool.
On that note as well, you'll probably see the 122 transactions for Convention Center. We had a wedding going on simultaneously.
Right.
So that wedding getting in early, getting settled, equates to that lower number for Convention Center.
And also here's just a for the good of the group as well as a positive, what they call the River Garage, which is River Place. We normally historically haven't run any pre-sale event sales there because in most cases, because of the street closures and the barricades, folks can't get to that deck. It's really you know, once the barricades go down, it's at police's discretion to let folks in or to come in, cycle in from the north end and kind of zigzag down there. So we stopped doing the staffed pre-sale $10 flat rate. But to see $1,000 worth of revenue on the 4th at that location, I mean, that's a good chunk of transactions that we historically have not seen at River Place on the 4th of July. Usually it's only, even throughout the day, it's only like maybe a few dozen transactions. So that's a lot more cars in there from previous years.
And then, thank you for highlighting all that, Austin. I had one more question for Pivot too, and maybe this can be an update for the next meeting. The increase of, or I believe it was 2 months ago, this committee had voted to increase the fine or fee for trucks that had been illegally parked in downtown Wilmington. What is the status of that? Of those percentage of citations? And if you don't have it this time, could you update us in the next? Would you mind updating us for the next meeting?
So I do not have those numbers for this meeting. I will absolutely include that for next. I think that is a great question and great point. So I will have that for y'all next meeting for an update.
Christine, are you looking for the loading zone, like the portion of those 2,082 here? How many are from loading zones? Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Yeah, either from loading zones or trucks that are parked in the middle of the street.
Like no parking or loading zones, sure.
Mm-hmm. I have seen, especially on Front Street, in front of our offices, a few of those trucks with citations on their windows while they're loading and unloading. And I just want to see what the conversations, you know, if you just give us an update on that, and what the conversations are between the distributors and Pivot Parking as these things happen. You know, obviously we want to try and keep a good relationship with those who are supplying our business segment downtown. But I just want to see how those conversations are being handled moving forward, and you know, where the guidance is going as in terms of being able to park. I will take note this week when the film crews were parked in front of the common desk in this 200 block of Front Streets, North Front Streets. There was a lot of loading zone space that was taken up by the film crews and parking space that was taken up by the film crews. So that negated any space left for our distributors to load and unload. And you actually saw one space that was coned in front of the Courtyard Marriott where there is no parking, and about a line of about 5 cars trying to get into the Courtyard Marriott to load. So I mean, there was just a huge jam. So I don't know if it's a matter of finding a different area for film crews to go, that's just as accessible, but doesn't take up all that loading zone space, or having some sort of traffic control there that allows our distributors to serve the restaurants and the businesses that they need to, and in coordination with that. I know we're having a lot of film crews coming in. There's a lot of film permits going out, but there's just a little bit of need for coordination there, I think. And I don't know if that's on the parking side or the film crew side.
Good point, Christina. It might be something we can talk with our film permit team internally, and when there's significant closures, depending on the area, but significant closures downtown that interrupt that flow of delivery, or zones are gone for a couple of days, might be that something we require these productions to create some loading zone space kind of in alternate areas and mark them appropriately, and just let businesses know. So that's a great point that you bring up.
I just don't want a distributor getting a $400 ticket when there's absolutely no
Sure.
room in the block, you know?
And on the citation increase as a whole, I'm glad you brought it up. That does have to go to city council, since citations are in city code. We haven't brought it to them yet. What I want to do is bring the potential loading zone increase at the same time of I believe the committee also approved the normal overtime parking violation fee to increase from 25 to 30, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or 20 to 30. Before we got in front of council on this, I've spoken to a few business owners downtown, talked to them, and none of them were very excited about hearing that our 20 violation was potentially going to increase. So what we're doing right now, we're trying to pull data within our citation platform and separate kind of one-time citations, those with 2 citations, those with 1, 2, and 3 potentially unpaid type citations, and potentially come up with some kind of staggered dynamic pricing with citations. So your first time offense maybe remains at 20, and then second offense escalates to 25 or 30, and so on. But before I brought this potentially back to DPAC to review and maybe take action on, we need to pull some data and see kind of what those numbers are first. But I think it's a good idea. One of the business owners actually brought this to us, and it happens in other cities. First time offense is X, second time offense is X, and it kind of escalates from there. So we're trying, it's been a challenge. We're trying to query our current data to kind of see what those volumes would be and kind of revenue impacts versus kind of the customer service side of that. So most likely we will potentially bring that back to the committee before we go to council on either one of those.
Thank you, Chance.
Sure.
Is there any upcoming project to take a look and reevaluate our commercial loading zones in the downtown district?
Yeah, it's on our list. I don't know that we've progressed very far, but yeah, it's on our list. It's a challenge, not just in Wilmington. I think I've alluded to this in previous meetings. It's a challenge everywhere. And I'm seeing, still daily basis, I'm seeing large delivery trucks in the middle of the street right next to an empty loading zone at times. I think it's a challenge across the board. But yeah, it's on our list. We just haven't progressed very far with it.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Are we all wrapped with pivot reports, Austin?
Yes, we're all wrapped up there.
Okay, wonderful. All right, organizational reports. We'll start with WPD. Tenet?
Good morning. Last month, it was rather slow, which I'm absolutely fine with. We had 6 bar inspections. We had 74 total charges throughout the month, four of them being drug related, 15 alcohol related. The others were related to trespass, underage possession, fake IDs, domestic stuff, of that sort. A couple of weeks ago, we had actually 12 B&Es at the River Place condo parking deck. We have made 3 arrests in those cases. So that's good news. The only issues we're really seeing downtown still is the younger crowd. And when I say younger, I'm talking 12 to 15 years old. And they are not obviously going inside any establishments, but they're down here midnight to, I would say, 11. They show up to 2:30 in the morning. I have met with the DA's office. We're trying to find ways to combat that. Next week, meeting with ALE and a few of our bars to discuss some of the issues that they're seeing and help remedy some of those issues. So other than that, it's preparing for school to be back in session.
Lieutenant, I think and I will not remember the month, I may have been June, and there was an incident at Front and Princess, I think around KGB. And council sort of reacted, one of the council members reacted, I thought he reacted very negatively with respect to the bar and the owners, and I wondered, is that a nuisance area in that section down there?
That is one of our main issues, and the main reason that is being it's pretty dark in those areas right there crossing the federal courthouse and that lot that's set down in. So what we try to do is on Friday and Saturday nights, we have, I guess you can call them boom lights, and we have tried to set them out, and it does seem to help. We have been in contact with some of the owners in that area also, and we're trying to, like I said, they're very cooperative, and we're working with them. So we're trying to get that issue fixed as much as we can. Yes, sir.
I know some of the owners, and they're extremely nice people.
Right.
I'm not surprised to hear they're cooperating, but I just wanted to make sure that they weren't just that I was hearing accurately their cooperation level with you.
Right. Yes, sir. They are. And like I said, the main issue there is lighting, to be honest, in that lot.
Well, I'm never down there that time of night to find out if it's your lady.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lieutenant Nichols. Any at-large members that wish to speak? All right, moving on to Cape Fear Community College.
Hey, we are nearing the end of an RFP process to upgrade our gates at both our Nut Street deck and our Hanover deck. And that will allow us to open up a lot more public parking on the north end when we're not needing it for the college. Kind of traditionally right now, it's pretty much college parking with a little bit of event parking. But with the new gates, it'll open up a lot of opportunities for us to use it for other events or just people that want to park on the north end to go out to eat or something. We're hoping to have that in hopefully this fall, maybe October. That's all I've got.
Great. Thank you, Sean.
Hey, Sean, is that RFP live? Has it already been advertised?
Yes, we're way past that. We're already in the selection phase right now. And we're getting pretty close to wrapping that up. And like I said, hopefully the installation will start September, October. Shouldn't take very long.
Awesome, great.
Sean, is that just transient parking, or is there like any type of monthly parking available there?
Couldn't get it to unmute. It'll be some transient parking. Like I said, it'll all be based on college schedule. So when we have parking available, it'll be opened up, especially nights and weekends. There'll be parking available where people can just come in and pay to park.
Any more questions for Sean? All right, I'm moving on, DBA. Samantha?
Hello. For DBA's updates related to parking, we're mainly continuing to put forth efforts to increase events in the CBD and surrounding districts. We're working with a few organizations to help be able to further assist and support businesses in their efforts to create events and continue to bring businesses downtown. That's all I've got.
All right, thank you, Sam. New Hanover County. Oh, well, so we'll have to skip. Row.
The only development on Row is that the president of Row has resigned last week, I believe, following some disagreements, I guess, with the membership. Ed Sager is no longer the president of Row. Dennis McGarry, who had been president last year, was president emeritus, still a member of the board. He has agreed to step in and serve out until at least February and perhaps longer, until a new slate of candidates is put in place and another president selected. And that's really basically it for Row. The next event for us is in October, Backdoor Kitchen Tour. It's the annual fundraising event for the organization. And the committee has always been very generous, and I've spoken to Chance about this already, in providing some accommodation for the people who will visit these homes. So it's basically downtown in the historic district for the most part. So that's basically it for Row.
Thank you, Michael. For WDI, our parking map for on our interactive Bring It Downtown parking map is currently online and being utilized, fully updated, and we released the news last week. We are also live on the city's website, so there's two platforms to share for the downtown parking, and we're really excited about the launch of the map and being able to help increase the ease of finding all the parking amenities downtown. We do have some other updates that we are currently working on, just mainly changing out icons and ensuring the color coordination is looking sharp. But other than that, those minor details, we are set to go. Last week, speaking of events, WDI responded to a call on the Planning Commission's agenda, and we went to speak with some of the owners. Eagles Dare passed 2 to 3 votes on the amendment to increase the number of concerts allowed within the central business district, outdoor venues, to have these events from 2 to 20. That will go next to City Council for public hearing and hopefully a vote later on down the road. So that is currently in queue. Our economic impact study is fully underway to assess the direct and indirect impacts of the venues. That is Live Oak Bank Pavilion, Wilmington Convention Center, and Greenfield Lake Amphitheater. A lot of parking data is being assessed, as well as visitor traffic, and that will be all wrapped into a hotel assessment where we will take a look at several city sites for a hotel. And we are currently in planning mode for the holiday events and activities. So I expect a little bit more information to come out about that at the September meeting. But we are hoping to expand our holiday lighting pilot project from last year. We're expanding on that for a little bit more elaborate display this holiday season. And with that, I will, unless there's any questions, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
All right, thank you. Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's see you all in September. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Goodbye.